Thank you for joining us at Community on Demand. Today, we will hear from Dr. Dave Anderson. Dr. Anderson is a veteran church planter, pastor, author of several books, and is currently serving as the president of Grace School of Theology here in the Woodlands. He is also a member here at Community. This message was recorded during a live Sunday morning service at Community. Let's join Dave as he begins his message.
But God has ways of identifying things. He's left animals with marks. The camel has humps. Zebra has stripes. And he even does that with snakes. One time I was living in Artesian Oaks up near Conroe. Went outside, I saw this little 2-foot snake going along and had these 3 colors, black, red, and yellow. Now, how do you find out if it's a coral snake or not? Red on black, friend of Jack, red on yellow, kill a fellow. It was red on yellow, so I killed it. That's one of 2 coral snakes I've seen in my life. But it's a good thing that God put some markers on it as a warning. The second one I saw was I was on an Indian guides retreat with my son up in the woods near Livingston, and there it was on the hiking trail as we walked along. Well, those are animals. So what about in the church? Has God left us identifying marks of different types of people? We're in a section on James where we're studying how to have victory over our trials. And we've learned we need 3 qualities to do that. We need to be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. We're getting toward the end of James. We're in this section on being slow to wrath. And we've seen that a lot of our anger comes from blocked goals, things we lust after and don't seem to be able to get. Where do wars and fightings come from among you? Don't they come from the members that war within you, inside of you? And so we saw that God resists the proud, gives grace to the humble. And it took grace to get us into his kingdom. For by grace are you saved through faith, not of works, lest any man should boast. But we need more grace once we're in the kingdom. Because we still have an enemy we fight, actually 3 of them, the devil, the world, and our flesh. The flesh is often referred to in the Greek Bible as he harmatia, which just means the sin. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to us, so most interpreters say the sin nature. We have a sinful nature that we inherited from Adam. We came into the world with it, and it's with us until we leave this world. Something we wrestle with. Much of the book of Romans is how to have victory over that sin nature, how to keep it from being our master, how to keep us from being slaves of it. And so in the book of James, he recognizes that sin nature in chapter 1, also in chapter 4. And he says, to overcome it, you need more grace. But God resists the proud. That word resist means put on his armor. God actually puts on his armor and goes to battle with you if you are proud. So, it behooves us to learn how to be proud. So we saw some stair steps to humility in verses 6 through 10. Now this morning, we are on verse 11 and 12. Because there are 3 sections here on humility, actually. There's humility before God in 6 through 10. There's humility before men that we'll look at this morning. And then next week, there's humility before the world. But the key to all this is finding humility. How does that happen? Well, one way to find humility is to figure out what is the opposite of it. Often the Bible teaches by contrast. And in verse 11 it says, do not speak evil of one another, brethren. He who speaks evil of a brother and judges his brother speaks evil of the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you're not a doer of the law, but a judge. There's one lawgiver. See, that's capitalized, referring to God. There's one lawgiver who's able to save and destroy. Who are you to judge another? So he's saying that judging other people is a form of pride. It starts on the inside and it boils up. So we learn a lot about that right here, about not judging one another. All throughout James, you have this English people would call it a leitmotif. It's a sub-theme. It's underneath, because several times we're told not to judge each other. And it seems to be a particular issue that religious people wrestle with. We find the word respect the face or take it at face value only in religious literature. That we tend to look on the outside, opposite of what Pastor Dan was talking about with David and Samuel, where God looks on the inside, we tend to look on the outside. And that's true when it comes to this problem with speaking evil. The word is in NIV is translated slander, not to slander someone. It's made up of two Greek words, kata and laleo. Now, kata we have in English. What's a cataclysm? What is a catastrophe? Kata. It's something that's down. It's going down. And so that's what this word is. Laleo just means to speak. And so it's to speak plus down. It's to speak down about other people. A more common way we would put it is to put people down, put them down, or put down. He says that's a thing that we're not supposed to do. Do not speak evil of one another, brother. Don't put other people down. Now, we learn to camouflage that. As I put in your notes there, we're trying to lower the estimation of a brother or sister in the eyes of other people. What is that? We're trying to lower the estimation of a brother or sister in the eyes of other people. So how do we do that? Well, we've read the Bible. We know we're not supposed to go around speaking evil of people. So we said, now, stop me if I'm wrong, but. Or, now, I'm not being critical, but. Or perhaps I shouldn't say this, but. He's a wonderful guy in many ways, but. Oh, she's such a gifted person, but. It's the ubiquitous but that's the key. I'm sorry, Phil, that didn't sound right, did it? But I have to go on. So, and that's the way how we kind of disarm the other person. We, when they hear us putting someone down, they might recoil. So we disarm them by saying something positive about the person, all designed to introduce something negative. That's to speak evil of other people. William Barclay said this: there are few sins which the Bible so unsparingly denounces as the sin of irresponsible and malicious gossip. To tell and listen to a slanderous story, especially about a distinguished person, is for all people a fascinating activity. If you want to get people's attention, just pick a name people look up to and then sprinkle it with bits of sordid information. And you will captivate your audience for minutes on end. It's a power play by the tongue. The truth is, there's so much good in the worst of us and so much bad in the best of us that it never behooves any of us to talk about the rest of us. Got that? Okay. There's so much good in the worst of us and so much bad in the best of us, never behooves any of us to talk about the rest of us. A little seed lay in the ground and soon began to sprout. Now, which of all the flowers around, it mused, shall I come out? The lily's face is fair and proud, but just a trifle cold. The rose, I think, is rather loud, and then it's fashion old. The violet, it's very well, but not a flower I'd choose, nor the Canterbury bell. I never cared for blues. So I criticized each flower, this supercilious seed, until it woke one summer hour and found itself a weed. You got that, didn't you? It's a mark of a proud person that when they open their mouth, they put others down. I've stepped down as president of Grace School of Theology, not down, they're calling it a promotion. They're making me chairman of the board now. So we're out looking for a new president. And we found a guy, I mean, he was so gifted. He was, well, let me tell you. He could throw a football 85 yards. Even Brett Favre couldn't do that. He could throw it 60 yards on his knees. He was second in the Heisman Trophy running. He was something else. Plus, he had a PhD in Semitic studies, which means he was probably a brainiac. But whenever he opened his mouth, he went, "Wah, wah, wah." And he instantly could have drawn students to our school. He's that gifted, and he has a following. But I talked to one of our board members who gives significantly to our school, and he said, well, he better bring his own funding. He said, I wouldn't want him representing us. Well, it was interesting, but my whole staff said the same thing. Because whenever this guy opened his mouth, I'm not exaggerating much here, he was talking about himself and another accomplishment he had made. That's one tip of a problem, right? But the more serious problem in church isn't the guy who goes around bragging and telling you how great he is or she is. It's the person who puts other people down. Because that can destroy. It says in the book of Galatians, beware of nitpicking at each other lest you devour one another. You can destroy the whole church. Unity is one of the highest principles we find in the New Testament. There are many things we yield to promote unity. You don't yield sound doctrine, but you yield personal preferences, things that aren't going to make that much difference. So he says here that we need to be careful about saying evil of other people. Well, there's some confusion. Speak evil has another word they're using here. 11b, he switches. He goes from kataleo to krino. The word krino means to judge. It means to condemn. Kata krino, down again. Kata krino, condemnation. It's to condemn the other person. It's to judge them as evil. This can be done in our hearts. But if we speak evil with our lips, haven't we already condemned in our hearts? It has to start on the inside in order to get to the outside. So I want to give you a few reasons here the Bible gives on why we should not be judging one another. First of all, a servant is only responsible to his master. Now, let's see if I can get to these verses fairly quickly. Okay. In Romans 14, verse 4, it says, who are you to judge another servant? Who are you to judge another's servant? To his own master he stands or falls. Indeed, he will be made to stand, for God is able to make him stand. Now, later on in this chapter, it talks about the judgment seat of Christ. And the implication is that God is the judge who can sort out the problems we have, the things we do that are wrong. He doesn't need our help. And really, it's none of our business. Let's say you own an electrical supply company, have 300 employees, and one of them comes to you to complain about another. And you, as the boss, would have every right to say, well, who do you report to? Why are you coming to me? It's really none of your business. This employee works for this other boss. So why would you be doing this? Why would you be coming to me with this? It's not your business. He serves another master. We serve the Lord Jesus. We work for him. Each of us works for him. And he's fully capable of sorting out the things in our life that aren't pleasing to him. So that's one reason. Romans 2 says we may be doing the same thing. In chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, it says, therefore you are inexcusable, O man, whoever you are, who judge, for in whatever you judge another, you condemn yourself. For you who judge practice the same things. Now that word same in the Greek doesn't really have to mean same, it can mean similar. You don't commit adultery, but you look at pornography. It's similar. It's a similar sin. It's in the same arena. He says, for you who judge another do similar things. But we know that the judgment of God is according to truth against those who practice such things. And do you think this, O man, you who judge those practicing such things and doing the same or similar, that you will escape the judgment of God? And so he's leading up to, not in this passage, but I'm leading up to James chapter 2, verse 12. We'll get there in a second. We may do worse things. Now, this takes us to the gospel, the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus, in that passage, is talking about, some call it the mote in the beam. Others call it the splinter in the telephone pole. And he says, why are you trying so hard to get the splinter out of your brother's eye when you got a telephone pole sticking out of yours? So he says in verse 3, why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye and do not consider the plank in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me remove the speck from your eye, and look, a plank is in your own eye? Hypocrite, first remove the plank from your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. And it's almost a humorous situation he's painting here. It's as though we come to church and you have this little speck in your eye, and I've got this telephone pole sticking out of mine eye. As I turn, I just knock everyone down. He says, you don't want to do that. Don't do worse things. You might be judging your brother for chewing tobacco when you're having trouble loving your wife. Get to things that really count. Next, we shall be judged as we judge others. That takes us over to James 2:12. Now, we've looked at this before, and he says that we should have mercy on our brothers. He talks about not judging in the first part of chapter 2 of James. I just found 1 John. And he says, judgment will be without mercy on the one who's not had any mercy. Good, now I'm in 1 Peter. All right. Now, if you commit adultery, but you do not commit adultery, but you do murder, you become a transgressor of the law. So speak and so do as those who will be judged by the law of liberty. So when will we be judged by the law of liberty? At the judgment seat of Christ. That's when we appear before him to see how much of our life, since we became believers, is going to count for eternity. Or another way to put that, how much of our life, since we became believers, is going to glorify Jesus forever and ever and ever. I am just astounded when I run into Christians who think rewards aren't important, that they don't care about. I just want to get in. Just let me get in. And totally forget that's only the starting point of the Christian life. That Jesus motivates us with rewards. His disciples, Peter says in Matthew 19, says, look, we've left everything to follow you. What are we going to get out of it? He says to you, you shall be given to rule over the 12 tribes of Israel when I come back in what they call there the regeneration. He's talking about when he comes back for his kingdom, there'll be 12 thrones. He motivates them through a reward. And people will say to me, well, that's selfish. I don't want anything for me. I want it all for him. Well, now you're moving in the right direction. The rewards aren't about us. The rewards measure how much glory you will bring to Jesus Christ forever and ever and ever. And if you don't want to glorify him, we've got another problem to talk about. That should be one of the great driving forces of our Christian life, to make my life count forever. And if it counts forever, it's glorifying him. Glorifying him. People say, well, that still seems selfish. Oh, wait a minute. G. Campbell Morgan, a preacher from yesteryear, illustrated it with moons. He said, there are no half moons in heaven. Everyone's a full moon. Now, what does a moon do? Does it have light of its own? Of course not. What does it do? It reflects the light of the sun. That's what we will do. We will reflect the light of the S-O-N. He is the light. And as we become like him, we reflect more and more of his light. Well, what's light? It's a composite of the colors of the prism, right? And in this case, his light is all of his character qualities combined. That's his light. So as the Holy Spirit is developing these qualities in us, we are getting more and more able to reflect his light. Reflect his light for all eternity. Do you get that? That is amazing that he would let us do that. This clump of clay. I mean, a lot of you know me well. It's only by God's grace I stand here. And that's the love and grace we'll be able to reflect for all eternity. Do you know the angels are watching you and everything you do? In 1 Corinthians 11, it encourages the women to have a certain attitude. And then it says, because of the angels. In 1 Peter 1, it says, if you endure suffering for Christ, it will show up in how much of your life counts forever. And then it says, the angels get on their hands and knees to inspect this whole procedure. What procedure? Suffering before glory. They couldn't figure that out. Suffering before glory. Jesus, their Lord, suffering before glory. They're watching. And what you do matters. But it's not selfish. Do you think it's selfish for me to want to get closer to Betty? Probably say, oh yeah, that is selfish. No, it's not. Is it selfish to want to get closer to Jesus? No. And that's one of the rewards as you're faithful to him that he brings us. And so he says in verse 12, so speak and so do as those who will be judged by the law of liberty. In 13, he says, for judgment is without mercy to the one who has shown no mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. Did you hear that? Judgment is without mercy to the one who's shown no mercy. Or it's said back in Matthew, as you measured it out, it shall be measured out unto you. As you judge, so shall you be judged. Not talking heaven and hell here. Talking about standing before the judgment seat of Christ. And if we have been merciless in our treatment of other people and our attitudes toward them, then my, he'll have the same attitude toward our life and that part of our life which will be burned up as wood and stubble. You don't want that. I don't want that. So I want to be very merciful. There are people who do things I don't understand. I do things I don't understand. But with regard to other people, I have purpose to be very, very merciful. Because I know someday I'm going to need a lot of mercy. So only a judge has the right to judge the law. To judge my brothers, to judge God's law of love. One final thing. We don't have all the facts. Once again, as the example of David was used this morning, God sees into the heart. David was a man after God's own heart. What does that mean? Ever figured that one out? That'll be in a future message. Come back. We'll talk about that. But we don't have all the facts. I remember in seminary, we had a missionary speaker at chapel. Terrible message. And after the chapel was over, a group of guys were standing around berating the missionary speaker. Poor exegesis. Didn't handle the text, didn't keep our attention. We slept through it. And leading the discussion was the best preacher in the senior class. But another guy was walking by overhearing it, and he stopped and he says, wait a minute, Bill. You don't have all the facts. 2 hours before he stood up there, he got news that his wife had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And 4 years ago, he buried his only son. It's a wonder that he was able to stand up there and talk at all. And right now, English is not his first language. So he's in the adjustment period that missionaries go through when they come back from the field. You shouldn't be judging him. And that's often the way it is, isn't it? We just don't have all the facts. So verse 12 now, back in James chapter 4, we read, "If you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. There's one lawgiver who's able to save and destroy." Now you might think when you see that word save, it's talking about there's one God, one lawgiver, who can put people in hell or put them in heaven. But wait a minute. Verse 11 says, "Do not speak evil of one another, brethren." And every other place in this book where you see brethren or beloved brethren is talking about born-again people. That's what he said in chapter 1, verse 16, in chapter 1, verse 18. He's talking about people who are Christians. So heaven's not an issue. So how is he going to motivate them by saying there's one lawgiver who can send people to heaven or to hell? Don't think he's talking about that. In 2:14 of James, he was talking about the judgment seat of Christ. In 1:21 in James, the word saved means judgment seat of Christ. And I'd say right here in this verse, he's talking about the judgment seat of Christ. Burn it up as wood, hay, and stubble, destroyed. Kept as wood, as gold, silver, precious stones, saved for eternity. And so he's saying, it's not yours to decide what works or service or that your brother is doing is going to count or isn't going to count. That's not your job. God will do that someday. He is the one who can decide what is saved and what is destroyed from that person's life. So, judging other Christians is another form of playing God. It's another form of pride. In my conclusion, I'm saying judging other Christians is a symptom of pride. Edifying other Christians is a badge of humility. And that's the title of this message, a badge of humility. We're learning what that badge is by studying the opposite, a badge of pride, you might say. I remember one of my churches, they gave me a medal for humility and took it away when I began to wear it. And I thought, well, that ain't right. What's with these people? So I judged them harshly. No, just kidding. Ephesians 4. If you have a Bible and don't look up any other verse, today I'd like you to look at this one. Ephesians chapter 4. He's talking about taking off the ugly clothes of the old man when we weren't Christians, putting on the clothes of the new man. Let him who stole steal no more, but rather let him labor, working with his hands what is good, that he may have something to give. Instead of taking what isn't yours, give what is yours to other people. Take of the old man, put on the new man. Now in verse 29, Ephesians 4, let no corrupt words proceed out of your mouth. He's not talking about cussing there. That's the word for tearing down. Tearing down. Let no word come out of your mouth that tears down other people. Let no word come out of your mouth that tears down other people. Instead, take that off. But here's what's to proceed out of your mouth. What is good for necessary edification, to build them up. What comes out of our mouth should build up other people. As Maxwell says in one of his management books, look how you can add value to other people by what you say, by what you tell them, by building them up. I've been reading a bunch of biographies lately. I don't know how I got into it, but different sports heroes, different interesting people. I'm finishing up one now on Anthony Hopkins, the famous actor. And he was put down by pretty much everyone in his life. He was a little kid, chunky, quiet, introverted, always a loner. But one acting coach said one thing to him that set him off. inspired him to go on and become the actor he became, and still is, I guess. Just one small word that's positive from a teacher, from a parent, from a coach, can launch a whole career. Well, it says, what if you say, well, they don't have any redeemable features. They're just awful. They're ugly. I don't like them. Wait a minute, what's the verse say? Let no destructive word proceed out of your mouth. What is good for necessary building up? Why? T-H-A-T. T-H-A-T. It may impart grace to the hearer. Get it? They don't deserve it. No argument. That's your opportunity to do something that will reflect God's character forever and ever and ever. It's called grace. It's an undeserved favor. Build them up, even when they don't deserve it. Have you ever noticed that only little birds sing? You've never heard a note from an eagle, a turkey, or an ostrich. They go gobble, gobble, or squawk, squawk, or wah, wah, wah. That built me up. I may start a whole new career. The canary, the wren, the lark, these are the ones that make beautiful music. If someone's a big bird in his own eyes, all you'll hear is squawks. But when you hear someone building someone else up, you're listening to beautiful music. Now, I've been asked before, of all these verses on humility, what I think is the most important one or important step. And I really think it's one we've already covered but didn't dwell on. That's where it says, draw near to God, and he'll draw near to you. I learned that verse from my firstborn son. He was about 5, maybe a little younger. But he still wore those pajamas that you button up. And we lived up in Artesian Oaks where we saw the coral snake. We had 2 children, but 4 bedrooms. So I used one bedroom as an office. And on Saturday nights, I like to be alone. I like to just pray and meditate about the ministry for the next day. So we had Hollywood couches. You know what those are? They make an L. And I was leaning against the wall, sitting on the couch. And I could see the handle. Now, Jimmy was supposed to be asleep. But I saw the handle turning slowly. And then it pushed open a little bit, and these little fingers crawled around. And I thought, what have we here? He kept pushing. Finally stuck his head in. His eyes were like saucers. I could tell he was afraid. He used to have night terrors, we'd call them, not nightmares. But I'm being holy, and I can't be disturbed. I'm a preacher. I have to get ready for Sunday morning. So he comes in. I said, Jimmy, what do you want? And he looks at me and says, Daddy, I don't want anything. I'm just kind of scared right now, and I want to be near you. Boom, 2 or 3 jumps, and bam, hit my chest. Put my arms around him, and I drew him close. That's when I learned this verse. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. So I'll leave you with a question. When you open your mouth, what comes out?
On behalf of Pastor Dan and the folks at Community, thank you for joining us today at Community on Demand. Feel free to share this link with others, and please know you are always welcome to be our guest during a live service any Sunday morning at our campus in The Woodlands, Texas. For more information, just click on the link, www.cbcwoodlands.org. I hope you will again join us at Community on Demand.